Welcome to Easy English, your go-to channel for improving your English and life.
Hello everyone, welcome back to Easy English, your go-to channel for improving your English and changing your life. I'm Antoni, your host, and as usual, I'm joined by my amazing co-host Sarah.
Hey Antoni, hey everyone, thank you for joining us. Today's topic is an interesting one.
Yes, Sarah. It's about social media addiction.
Okay, so that first, bleary-eyed reach for your phone, the second the alarm goes off. Does that sound familiar?
Huh?
Or maybe looking up and realizing, wow, an hour just vanished, just scrolling.
Yeah, fine.
And that little ping of anxiety when you see you've missed a notification, even if it's like totally trivial.
Oh, definitely.
Okay, let's really get into this because today we're doing a deep dive into social media addiction.
Mm-hmm.
Look, nobody can deny how huge these platforms are. They connect us, entertain us, sometimes they even inform us. But there's this other side, isn't there?
There really is. For a lot of people, it becomes this almost automatic compulsion, something that maybe they don't even realize has such a grip.
It's that tension, right? These tools, they were designed for connection, but they also have these, I guess, really powerful ways of influencing us.
Absolutely. They can lead to what feels like, a loss of control for many users. It's built in some ways.
Exactly. So our goal here is to really understand the nuts and bolts, what's driving this, what's actually happening in our brains when we get sucked in like that.
And how does it affect our lives day to day?
Yeah. And crucially, what can we do about it? This isn't about, just pointing fingers or saying social media bad.
Yeah.
We want to give you a clear, sort of actionable understanding, maybe some things you haven't thought about, and definitely some practical steps.
And to do that, we've looked at a couple of really insightful pieces. One gives a great overview of the addiction itself, the definition, the psychology, the impact, solutions.
Right.
And the other takes a bit of a broader view, looks at how these platforms evolved, the design elements that make them so, sticky.
Sticky, yeah, that's a good word. So we're pulling the key ideas from both to give you a really complete picture.
That's the plan.
Okay, so let's maybe wind the clock back a bit first, because it's easy to forget this stuff hasn't always been here.
Right. It feels permanent now, but it's relatively new.
We're talking late 90s, early 2000s, 6 Degrees, Friendster, MySpace. Remember tweaking those MySpace profiles forever?
Oh, yeah. Hours spent on the perfect song choice.
Totally. Then the game changer, 2004, Facebook arrives.
Yeah.
And then, the big shift to mobile in the 2010s, Snapchat, TikTok.
And the scale now is just staggering. The sources point out we're talking billions of daily users.
Billions. Wow.
And here's something really striking. For a lot of people, the time they spend online, it's actually more than the time they spend sleeping.
Get out. More than sleeping.
Yeah. Just let that sink in for a second.
That's pretty mind-blowing. And okay, this incredible growth, it has connected people globally in amazing ways, no doubt.
Sure, lots of positives.
But it's also led to these, as one source puts it, really sophisticated tools. Tools that can shape how we think, how we act, our choices.
Which brings us right to the core issue. What is social media addiction exactly? How do we define it?
Good question.
Well, the sources are pretty clear. They classify it as a behavioral addiction.
Okay, so like gambling or maybe problematic gaming.
Exactly that kind of category. The key thing is this persistent, compulsive urge to use social platforms.
Even when it starts causing problems.
Yeah, even when you know it's having negative consequences in your actual life, but you keep doing it anyway.
Okay, so what are the signs? Like the red flags we should maybe look out for in ourselves or others?
The sources list quite a few common ones. Constantly checking notifications, that's a big one.
That little dopamine hit.
Losing all track of time when you're scrolling, feeling genuinely restless or agitated if you can't get online.
Right, like anxious.
Yeah, exactly. Maybe letting other responsibilities slide, work, school, family stuff.
Yeah.
And just that feeling of unease, maybe emptiness when you're disconnected.
It's worth just pausing, isn't it? And thinking, do any of those resonate with your own experience? Even a little bit.
Definitely. And that leads to the big question, why? What makes these platforms so compelling, so hard to step away from?
Yeah, what's the trick?
The sources really dig into the psychology here, and it's fascinating, actually. There are several key principles at play.
Okay, let's break down that psychological playbook then. Dopamine, that seems to be the famous one.
It is. Every share, every comment, it gives you a little burst of dopamine in your brain, that feel-good chemical. It's a direct reward.
So your brain goes, ooh, Nice. Do that again.
Pretty much. And it's not just general pleasure. It activates specific reward pathways, the mesolimbic dopamine system. Same ones involved in other reward-seeking stuff.
Right. But it's not just the reward, is it? It's how it's delivered.
Exactly. That's the intermittent reinforcement part. It's unpredictable.
Like a slot machine.
Precisely like a slot machine. Sometimes you post and get loads of likes, sometimes barely any. That variability, that maybe this time feeling, it actually makes the behavior more addictive than if reward was guaranteed every time. It keeps you hooked, chasing the next potential win.
Okay. That makes a lot of sense. And then there's FOMO, fear of missing out.
Oh yeah, FOMO is huge. In this hyper-connected world, you see everyone's updates, the trends, the news. There's this constant low-level anxiety that you're being left behind if you're not checking.
So checking becomes the way to try and soothe that anxiety.
Kind of, yeah. But then you get hit with the social comparison piece, which the sources really emphasize.
Right. Seeing everyone's highlight reel.
Exactly. These carefully curated best versions of everyone else's lives. Perfect holidays, career wins, flawless selfies.
Compared to your own, messy reality.
And it's almost impossible not to compare. And that can easily lead to feeling inadequate or jealous or just generally rubbish about yourself. It chips away at your self-worth.
It's like comparing your behind-the-scenes bloopers to everyone else's final edited movie.
That's a great way to put it.
So, given all these hooks, who is particularly vulnerable? Does it affect everyone equally?
Well, anyone can be affected. But the sources do point to certain groups who might be at higher risk. Teenagers and kids are a big one.
Because their brains are still developing, impulse control and all that.
Exactly. The prefrontal cortex isn't fully formed. Also, individuals already dealing with anxiety or depression, they might use social media as a kind of crutch or for online comfort.
Seeking connection they maybe don't feel offline?
Perhaps. Lonely individuals, too, sometimes replacing real interaction with virtual ones. And then there's an interesting group, influencers and content creators.
Because their job is engagement.
Right. Constant posting, checking metrics, interacting. It's tied to their income, their identity. The lines between healthy use and compulsion can get really, really blurry for them.
Yeah, I can see that. So when this use does cross the line, what are the actual consequences, the real-world impact?
It's pretty far-reaching, honestly. It touches almost everything. Mental health is obviously a major one.
Depression, anxiety?
Definitely. The sources consistently link high social media use to increased rates of both. Could be the comparison, the pressure, the fear of negativity. Plus, just the constant notifications can keep your nervous system kind of on edge.
Like a low-level hum of anxiety all the time.
Yeah. And sleep. Don't forget sleep. The blue light from screens, especially late at night, seriously messes with your sleep cycle.
Right. And it's not just mental, is it? There are physical things, too.
Absolutely. Think about posture.
Yeah.
That text neck thing is real. Neck pain, headaches.
Guilty.
Eye strain, too. And just being more sedentary because you're scrolling instead of moving, that has all sorts of knock-on health effects down the line.
What about focus, like at work or school?
Huge impact there. Distraction is probably the biggest factor. That constant pull to just check your phone makes deep work, sustained attention, really difficult.
Lower grades, missed deadlines.
Yep. Reduced efficiency. And for people whose jobs require them to be online, it's easy for personal scrolling to bleed into work time, or for work messages to bleed into personal time, leading to burnout.
And our actual, face-to-face relationships, do they suffer?
The sources suggest they do. Less quality time with loved ones. Partners feeling like they're competing with a screen for attention.
Ouch. That feeling of being ignored while someone's phubbing you. Phone snubbing.
Exactly. The richness of in-person connection can definitely diminish when our attention is constantly pulled elsewhere.
The sources you mentioned had some case studies too, right? To kind of illustrate this.
They did, yeah. Little snapshots. There was Rami, a 14-year-old. His late-night YouTube thing started small, but ended up really hitting his sleep and schoolwork.
Okay.
And Leah, 28, an influencer. Her self-worth got so tangled up with likes and comments that when engagement dropped, she'd have actual anxiety, even panic attacks.
Wow. That shows the pressure.
It really does. And then Ollie, a 40-year-old engineer. During the pandemic, he got caught in this cycle of doom scrolling on Twitter, trying to stay informed, but it just amped up his anxiety and caused tension at home.
So it manifests in really different ways for different people.
Completely. Different platforms, different triggers, different consequences, but a similar struggle for balance underneath.
And this isn't just like a Western problem, is it? It's global.
It is, though how it plays out varies. The sources touch on this. In the U.S., you see high teen screen time, lots of talk about mental health links.
Okay.
In Japan, very high youth connectivity. but maybe less open discussion about mental health struggles due to cultural factors.
Interesting. What about other regions?
In the Middle East, platforms like Instagram, TikTok are huge. There can be intense pressure there to present this perfect, flawless online life.
Ah, that social comparison aspect again, maybe amplified.
Could be. And in many parts of Africa, mobile internet is booming, and social media is often the main way people get online, access news, connect. So it plays a really central role, bringing unique opportunities, but also challenges.
And that body image piece you touched on earlier, that feels like it needs a closer look, especially for young people.
Definitely. The sources are quite clear on this. Constant exposure to filtered, edited, perfect images creates totally unrealistic beauty standards.
Which can mess with your head.
Massively. It fuels body dissatisfaction, disordered eating patterns, even drives interest in cosmetic surgery, particularly among young girls. It's a serious concern.
And things like Instagram hiding like counts, that helps, but maybe doesn't get to the root of it.
It suggests the problem is deeper than just chasing visible popularity metrics. Yeah, it's about the images themselves, the comparisons they invite.
Okay, and looping back to the workplace beyond just distraction, how else does this play out professionally?
Well, there's the productivity loss, for sure, but also burnout. If your job requires constant online engagement, or if work communication bleeds onto social platforms after hours, that always-on pressure is exhausting.
Blurring the lines between work and life.
Exactly, which is why we're starting to see more companies talking about and sometimes implementing things like digital wellness programs for their employees, trying to encourage healthier boundaries.
It really sounds like our brains are, I don't know, adapting to this constant digital input, almost being rewired.
That's actually what some of the neurological research suggests. The sources mention MRI studies looking at long-term effects.
What are they finding?
It's pretty striking. Some studies show reduced gray matter volume in brain areas linked to self-control, decision-making, the bits that help us resist impulses. Yeah. And at the same time, increased activity in the brain's reward pathways, similar patterns to what you see in substance addiction.
Wow. So it's actually changing our brains.
The evidence points that way. Changes impacting sleep regulation, memory, emotional processing too. This kind of neurological rewiring helps explain why just deciding to use less can be so incredibly hard for some people. The habit is literally embedded.
Okay, that sounds pretty concerning. But there are things we can do, right? The sources offered solutions.
Absolutely. And that's the hopeful part. There's a whole toolkit of strategies, really, across different levels. Let's start with the individual.
What can I do personally?
Awareness is step one. Use those screen time trackers on your phone or get an app. Just see where the time is actually going. That can be eye-opening.
Confronting the data.
Yeah. Then make those tempting apps harder to get to. Move them off your home screen, maybe turn off notifications, create friction.
Make it less automatic.
Exactly. Set specific tech-free times or zones, like no phones at the dinner table or for the last hour before bed. That's a big one for sleep.
Right. Protect those spaces.
The sources even suggest trying analog alternatives. Feel the urge to post something. Maybe journal about it first instead. Find offline hobbies you actually enjoy to replace scrolling time.
Replacing the habit with something else. Okay. What about within families?
Similar principles. Create those tech-free zones together. Dinner table, bedrooms. Maybe watch stuff or play games together sometimes. Talk about the content.
Make it a shared experience, not isolating.
Right. And with kids, guide them with empathy. Understand the pull these things have, rather than just laying down the law. Open communication works better than strict bans, usually.
And schools, what role can they play?
A big one, potentially. Integrating digital wellness or media literacy into the curriculum is crucial. Teach kids how this stuff works, how to think critically about it.
Give them the tools.
Yeah. Organize fun, screen-free challenges. And make sure counseling services are available for students struggling with tech-related stress or addiction.
It sounds like it needs a real community effort. What about, like, governments or the tech companies themselves? They built these things.
That's a key point. Governments could potentially look at stricter age verification, maybe require warnings on addictive features, fund public awareness campaigns.
Treating it more like other public health issues.
Kinda, yeah. And the tech companies. There's a growing call for more ethical design. Build in break reminders, be more transparent about algorithms, offer better tools for users to pause or limit their own use. Prioritize well-being, not just engagement metrics.
So moving towards a more mindful tech future.
That's the hope, I think. The sources suggest social media isn't going away, and maybe it shouldn't entirely. There are positives, but we need to redefine our relationship with it.
Shifting from being passive products of the algorithm to active users making conscious choices.
Beautifully put. Feeling empowered to log off without guilt. Saying no to the endless scroll. Prioritizing real life, real connection over digital validation. And maybe the most important thing, teaching the next generation that their worth isn't measured in likes or followers.
But in their character, their actions.
Exactly. Who they are in the real world. That's what truly matters.
So wrapping up this deep dive, it's clear social media addiction is, well, it's a real thing, rooted in psychology with wide-ranging impacts.
It really is significant. But the key takeaway, I think, is that change is possible. We have agency here.
It comes down to awareness, setting boundaries, making conscious choices.
That seems to be the core message from the sources. Yes, awareness, boundaries, and conscious choice about how we use these powerful tools.
Okay, so that leaves us with a final thought for you, the listener, to maybe mull over in this world that is constantly grabbing for our attention, a world that kind of thrives on distraction. What truly valuable things, experiences, connections, maybe even deep thoughts, what are we missing out on by being perpetually plugged in?
And what might happen if we intentionally, consciously carved out more space in our lives, space for focus, for presence, for real connection, away from that constant digital